No abrigo día. No era, no era
Welcome
dos.
back, Sports Ranter Nation. Here again, live every week at 6 p.m., concluding the NFL season of 2024, and now heading
Día.
into a wild card weekend. I want to say thank you to our hosts, Jake, Nikub, and Drew, for joining us here again, once again. Really excited. So much to cover, so much to talk about. But just to kind of, like I said, we are a fantasy show. We kind of want to cover some of the things before we go into the rest of the league and the playoff talk. But we want to go into some fantasy, some talk real quick. Um, for instance, Jamari Chase earning the triple crown, and Brock Bowers and Malik Neighbors making some rookie records. Okay, and so that is exciting going into the next season when we're getting preparing for our drafts and we're going forward. And so I want to pass it to you, Nick, to start us off. Uh, do you think this Brock Bowers, was it just a fluke because the offense and the quarterback and a check down, nothing else going on, or is Brock Bowers going to be the real deal next year, or is he going to be another Darren Waller?
Um, no, I think he's the real deal. I mean, the Darren Waller situation is a little unique. He started battling injuries. Plus, when he finally broke out, he was an older tight end already. He was already 28 years old. He wasn't 22. So you can question his hunger or whatever at that point. But no, I think he's the real deal. Um, and the reason why I say that is because even towards the end of the year, like I mean, who are you game planning against the Raiders? Like who are you trying to stop? Like I mean, I know Jacoby Myers nice, but he's a number two. He can get open, he can beat you here and there, but he's not like you just said. He's not Jamar Chase. He's not Stephon Diggs. Like you had plenty of tape now throughout the season to go stop Brock Bowers, and not a lot of teams were able to just shut him down. Yeah, he didn't have a great game every game, but that's normal. Even Jamar Chase had some bad games, right? Like every guy has that, but just to have over 1,100 yards, 110 catches as a rookie, um, that's not a fluke in my mind. You don't get 100 catches as a fluke in my mind. It's very rare does that happen. And to be honest, uh, I think the upside's even greater because he only had 5 touchdowns. Now, I think that's more of a testament to our quarterback and our offense. When we get in the red zone and bogged down, um, but you could project like a guy of his talent is gonna get more than 5 touchdowns in a season. And to be able to do that with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and the offensive coordinator getting fired in the middle of the season. Like there's so many things that just he could have had plenty of excuses this year to not do well. And it would have been fine. It would have been justifiable. It'd be like, hey, Brock Bowers is a stud, but he's got a defensive head coach who obviously just got fired. Your offensive coordinator got fired. You got Aiden O'Connell. Like he would have had all those excuses we make for everybody else, but it didn't matter. So that's why I give him his props. Obviously as a Raider fan, I don't want it to be a fluke. I think he's going to be a staple of our offense to come. He's going to be that Gronk, that Kelsey, that Tony Gonzalez that we need for hopefully 10 years. And we just got to get that quarterback and that head coach now in place. But yeah, I think he's the real deal, and we don't have we I don't have anything worried about him having a sophomore slump or anything like that.
Fantastic. Drew, we were talking about the other day when you weren't able to join us, but we were talking about how during the draft week, and I think in both leagues, there was a point in the draft where you were just forced to take Malik Neighbors, right? You were just forced. You had to take him, and it turns out he had 108 receptions, which is the franchise record for any Giant to ever be there. And then they keep the GM and they also keep the coach, and so. How do you feel about that? You end up taking Neighbors, and so how do you feel about Malik Neighbors going to next year? And your volume's off, by the way. You did something when you
He
changed.
doesn't know how to unmute himself.
That's right.
You're
All
on your
right,
phone.
I'll go where he figures that out.
Yeah.
I got. I think actually Brock Bowers and Malik Neighbors is it's the same. It's the exact same situation where they both had. Obviously, the talent's both real. They're both amazing. Um, Real deal, all that, like hands down. They're both in terrible quarterbacks. They did it, despite all the circumstances. That being said, both teams were terrible. They need to get more talent on those teams. I do definitely see a situation like kind of where like Sam Laporta had a great rookie season and then came in but it was just there was so many mouths to feed. So I think it's very realistic that the Raiders and the Giants, add different pieces into that offense. And both those players probably aren't going to see quite as many targets, moving forward. Both those guys just had unbelievable seasons. So are they the real deal? Absolutely. Do I project? Can you honestly say that they'll repeat this performance this year? If the franchises are serious about winning and stuff, you got to add extra pieces, and you gotta figure out ways to move the ball, other than one player. So I definitely think they'll be great moving forward, both fantasy and for their respective teams. But I wouldn't expect them to be like putting up the numbers that they did, the receptions and all that with the targets, next year.
Drew, I think you're good to go. And if you could add on to Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, but also retrospective, we don't got to cover much for fantasy today, but, looking back, like I said, I don't think you have a chance to tell us what you're looking forward to next year now after this season's over.
Yeah, I think like for me, it's like you said, going into this year. I mean, everybody kind of knew who Malik Neighbors was and rookie this, rookie that, and yeah, I mean, anytime you get a draft a rookie and you got an unknown kind of situation with the quarterback situation with the Giants and whatnot, you get scared. But I think I took him in like the 8th round or something like that in this league, and yeah, obviously it was fantastic. Obviously, going to next season, you expect him to be a 2nd round probably receiver. I mean, if he falls to the 3rd round, I think a lot of us would be pretty surprised if he did.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just one of those things where obviously you get lucky this year. Unfortunately, I still got bounced out in the 1st round, but he definitely was one of the carriers for me to get to the playoffs. So, but as far as Brock Bowers goes, hold on, dude. As far as Brock Bowers goes, this is gonna be rough, guys.
It's okay, buddy.
As far as Brock Bowers goes, he lit up the expectations, dude.
Okay, sweet. It's all worries. It's all worries, buddy.
I gotta figure out mutant, unmuting, how the hell this thing works, because this is gonna be a tough.
Well, you had it. It's okay. Don't worry, man. We're glad that you're here with us. Okay, but like I said, it is hard to talk about fantasy right now because it's over. And going into next season, there's gonna be new coaches, new free agencies, and new rookies to the team. And so it really is true. Every year, the team is a new team, right? And so it's really hard to talk about next season as far as fantasy. So there's a lot happening right now in the league. Number one, coach is being fired. So right now, there's currently 6 teams that need a new coach. The Jaguars, the Patriots, the Bears, the Saints, the Jets, and lastly announced today, Antonio Pierce was fired from the Las Vegas Raiders. And so, Nick, I know you were real hopeful, I think, to keep him. I do like his style. He was a good coach, I thought, a good players coach. But there was kind of something with like his social media, his conference skills weren't the greatest. Okay, but I don't think that matters as a coach. But what do you think, man? Now that happened today, it's fresh off. And it's fresh.
Well, the disappointing part is just starting all over again. As a fan, it's just tough. Every year you're obviously hopeful. The last few years I've been a little more hopeful, because I thought we had the talent in place. This year, I wasn't as hopeful, but not because of AP. It's just because we weren't able to get our quarterback. I never thought Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell was going to take us over the top. Now, my long stretch dream scenario was I was hoping Aiden O'Connell will take that 2nd-year leap in the offseason and win the job once we went into, spring training with just them two. And he couldn't even beat out Gardner Minshew. So that really was a downer because Aiden O'Connell has shown games and instances where he was okay, or actually played pretty well. He threw for over 300 yards against the Chiefs and was able to beat the Chiefs last year and all this other stuff. But he just didn't make that leap. He's a good backup quarterback. He's a good backup to have in the league. I think he'll be a journeyman backup, and there's nothing wrong with that. But obviously as a fan, we need a franchise quarterback who can help us win and not win despite of him. We need to win because of him. And yeah, it just sucks to have to start all over. 3 coaches in 3 seasons is not ideal. Mark Davis has had, you know, 8 head coaches in 11 years. So I thought he would be a little different than his dad, which he is, but the outcome is the same. Um, you know, Al Davis never had a GM, so he brought in a GM. I'm like, great, now we're gonna actually have GMs. Like this is gonna be good for the franchise. We did have some bad luck, of course, being the Raiders. He did sign John Gruden a 10-year deal, so I don't think this was his plan. So I don't always put it all on him because I mean he signed John Gruden for 10 years and it got cut short not because of him, not because of John Gruden, because of leaks of emails. So that was unfortunate. And ever since then, it's just we haven't been able to find the guy that we want to get. So it is unfortunate. It does suck that we have to start all over again. But the only hope I got, like I said, as fans, we always look at the bright side. We always try to be optimistic. Is we gotta go get a quarterback, and hopefully we marry him to the right coach. And we all know if you find that right coach with the right quarterback, things change right away. Things change rather quickly. So, if we're able to figure out those two pieces, because we're one of the youngest teams in the league, we got a lot of talent at a lot of other places. Of course, we have holes like any team, but we have some good building blocks that if we get the coach and the quarterback finally right after 22 years, I think we could turn it around rather quickly.
Real quick, Nick, before I pass it to you, Jake, I watched that game in Atlanta versus the Panthers. Michael Penix, dude, Penix, he throws the ball pretty darn good, man. I know you're hoping to get him, but damn it, he looks freaking.
That was
pretty.
my guy.
He
and that was the
looks
guy that was
good.
supposed to fall. Like the Vikings drafting him was not supposed to happen. So
He looks
I think
so good, dude.
again, I don't know whose fault it is. Blame it on the Raiders for not moving up. You can blame it on whatever you want, but you have 6 quarterbacks. You count all the teams that need quarterbacks. You're like, hey, we'll take. Maybe they like Bo Nix and Will Penix. They don't know. We'll just take. Cause a lot of teams do that. It's like, hey, we'll just sit put and we'll take the guy that's there for us. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a valid draft strategy. Just the Falcons threw a curveball and we don't get a guy.
Jake, it seems to me that the same teams are always fishing for new coaches. When you got the guys like the Steelers, and they've just hold Mike Tomlin for how long that they've hold, and Jim Harbaugh, they're all in the same division. What coach out there, or what do you think the different style of coaching, like what needs to happen for some of these teams that can't figure it out, or what is the damn problem?
And I think we touched on it a little bit a few weeks ago, but I really think it's so important. You see how Harbaugh went in with the Chargers, and people believe in this guy, Dan Campbell. People believe in this guy. These players, like, they'll die for these coaches. These coaches they're so connected with their team, and that's why guys, I feel like Mike McCarthy, the franchise can put together these fantastic, these winning teams that win all these games and stuff. But at the end of the day, it seems like they're always falling short. McCarthy don't look like he'll be around much longer in Dallas. I just think, I actually think Gruden still is good. If he comes back, whatever team, signs him, I think that's going to be a great, a great thing for a franchise that needs a coach that these players believe in. There's some really interesting, head coaching vacancies up for grabs. I think Jacksonville is a great, landing spot for a coach. There's a lot of talent, on that offense. Even the Jets, you just Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and the defense they've had and stuff. But it's just the ineptitude, I think, of some of these coaches. Players just aren't willing to go out and lay it all on the line for. So I think that's, you know, first and foremost, that's the biggest thing, is you just have to find a guy that these players, you know, truly believe in, that they can hold on to a locker room. Because, you know, once players are on the, you know, on the sideline like CeeDee Lamb, you know, man, we suck. It's like you're done. You know, you're just done. And you know, as Nick has said, like, I think the players truly did believe, you know, in Antonio Pierce. And God, you know, who knows what would happen in another offseason with another draft, you know, if they gave him one more year to, you know, see where he could, you know, see where he could go with that team. But yeah, you know, when the Chargers signed Harbaugh, it was like you just knew, because Harbaugh's had success everywhere he goes, and there's a reason for that. You know, Tomlin's been so successful for so long because, you know, those players, I'm going to Pittsburgh, you know, you've got, it's like, even if you don't maybe agree with the scheme or whatever the case, there's nothing that you can say, because these coaches are proven, they've had success, and you believe in them. You know. So that's a big thing. You know, I think like Doug Peterson, you know, when he went to Jacksonville, that was a great transition from the mess with Urban Meyer. But you know, we knew he wasn't going to be the winning coach that gets them over the top. So it's interesting with some of the names being thrown around. Gruden still interests me. I was excited when he signed with the Raiders. And it does suck what happened, you know, the way that he was outed and stuff. But the guy's had success, and if you give him a few years, I think he's going to have the belief and loyalty, you know, in the locker room. So that's the biggest thing. You know, you got to be a head coach that your players fight for.
Gruden has been very open on his new TikTok show on that he is very much willing to come back as a coach in the NFL if they let him, right? Drew, I don't know if you want to prepare to get your mic on or if you know how to do that, but there's some drama happening in the league. Number one, Brock Purdy is demanding a quick deal before it gets too dramatic, and maybe we can talk about that going forward. Like who we might anticipate is going to get fired as a coach coming up in the next few weeks here, and also any players that should be getting signed. You know, like Brock Purdy. I don't know what's going on, Drew.
I think what it really comes down to is the Niners every single offseason for the last like 3 to 4 off seasons have had some sort of you know, just drama, right? Nick Bosa contract, Debo, Ayuk. It's just nonstop, kind of just in the media, and you know, but this Brock Purdy situation is going to be very interesting to see how they do play it out. You know, if Brock Purdy's going to want to take that $60 million kind of thing, it's going to be a drag it out process, because obviously we saw how Brock Purdy played this year. It wasn't elite. Not only that, it's you know, you have the elbow injury. The elbow injury looks like it's going to be something that's going to be there long term, you know. So I'm sure that's going to be discussed in the contract. And if you can get him, I think where he should be being paid at is around 40 to 45 million. If you can get him for that, then yeah, I sign him quickly. But it's just a matter of if he's willing to take that cut, if he's willing to do that situation. But like we talked about it like 2 weeks ago when I was on the show last time, if he wants that 55 to 60 million, you have one more year in his deal, and you always can try to trade him if he needs to be traded or whatever the case may be. I think the 49ers put themselves in a situation right now where they have a lot of older players on that roster. They got a lot of people where they don't have the time and they don't have it, bro. Like, it's either you got to get rid of Debo and go just with a full-on start fresh rebuild and not pay Brock Purdy that much money, or they figure out a way to get Brock Purdy on the cheap and they just continue to build with what they have. But it's going to be basically a huge offseason to figure out what they're going to do, because if they decide to pay Brock Purdy 55 to 60 million, it's going to make things really tough down the road for us.
I think he's in a unique situation, Nick and Jake, because we talked about it all season long. Like this year, we didn't see hardly any 300-yard games, right? Like, we didn't see any of it. When the year prior, we saw all kinds of 500-yard games. And so there's something happening with the officiating, with the contracts, with the way that they're paying these quarterbacks. So I do believe, even though he wants a quick deal, Brock Purdy, I believe that he's in a unique situation, kind of like Le'Veon Bell a few years ago, fighting for that deserving running back contract. But now there's all kinds of things that are happening in the league. You know, obviously the league doesn't want to pay these quarterbacks no more, especially when they don't win years later. And so I think I'm kind of, even though I've hated on Brock Purdy, I kind of feel for him. I think he's going to be in a situation with his contract. What do you think, Jake?
I kind of disagree that the league doesn't want to pay these quarterbacks. I mean, you're going to have Sam Darnold go out, and probably hit free agency, and get a pretty hefty deal. I mean, we're talking Sam Darnold here, like, after one season. Personally, I think that there's a lot of teams out there, given the landscape of the quarterbacks, that would die to have a guy like Brock Purdy, because as Brock Purdy had one great, he had a great season. His season was down this year, but you can clearly look at the 49ers and say, like, Brock Purdy wasn't the reason that they didn't, succeed. Whereas, you can look at the Jets and say Aaron Rodgers was clearly terrible. And, so I think there's definitely, I mean, there was somebody out there willing to sign Deshaun Watson, so. And I think that there's a lot of teams that there's a lot of teams out there that are built to have a guy like Brock Purdy go in there and be that final piece. Even let's say, and I'm not trying to make the I'm not trying to like start a war here, but let's say that Brock Purdy's like kind of the next Jared Goff, where he's just kind of like this, that he's average dude, accurate quarterback, like not going to go out there and be this elite dude like a Lamar Jackson and just win you games on raw talent, but he can run an offense. He's not gonna cost you a lot of games. There's a lot of teams I feel like that are out there that are set up for that would be happy to pay a guy like that. So I think that Brock Purdy, I think he needs to ride out one more year. If he wants a big contract, I think he can get a good contract, as a free agent, ride out one more year. You still got a great team around you. Let everybody get healthy, and take the gamble on yourself, Brock.
And then ask for $70 million next year.
Which that's probably what the market will be.
I mean, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think what Bren was trying to allude to is, like, I think it looks like teams might be scaling back a little bit with what they. I mean, look at the evidence, right? Every quarterback that's gotten paid, hasn't got the job done. And I hate this notion, like, especially with Brock, it gets talked about Brock Purdy more than anybody, but like, oh, he doesn't look that good without, his star players out there. Yeah, well, neither does Joe Burrow when Chase is out. Like, right. You know what I mean? You can look at his numbers and they're drastically different. Now Joe Burrow is way better than Brock Purdy. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is everybody still needs their dude. Now the high mark, right? Your highs and lows are what make somebody elite or not. But I mean, and I'm just gonna knock him because I can. I mean, Patrick Mahomes' numbers are god awful. Yes, I know he finds a way to win, yada yada yada, but it's not like he's slinging it across the yard, and you're gonna penalize somebody when he loses all his receivers and stuff like that. So, right. I mean, but my thing is, it's again, pay the player, not the position, and I think like Drew said, 45 to 50 max is where he should be. I know his agent's going to be greedy. He's going to be greedy, and I get that. But if you're really all about winning and making the best team, like these quarterbacks have to take a pay cut. Like, it is what it is.
Nick, I think like the reason why I kind of have a soft spot for Purdy, why I think like if I was thinking like a GM where, and this is just a personal feeling, like be willing to pay this guy a little bit more, is because I love Brock Purdy's character. I think that you're never going to have a guy that has some scandal in a massage parlor. You're never going to have a guy that is not a leader in the locker room, throwing his players under the. He has so many other things that you need in a franchise leader, that is a safe bet that he's always going to bring, every day. So that's why I think with Brock Purdy specifically, I'd be willing to pay that player, not the position, a little bit more, because the guy has character that is. So
no, I agree.
rare.
That's a good point. I think we've talked about that on other podcasts. His intangibles, right?
Yeah.
Not just always about your arm strength.
Yeah.
Drew, we have a few comments in there. We have Jesus mentioning that the Vikings are the only team in the NFL that doesn't want to pay quarterbacks, and I added they just like to draft bust too. But also, someone a new chatter Angel23 says that Aaron Rodgers is boring. I don't know what he means by that. I kind of agree. I liked him better in Green Bay when he was a jerk. Okay, but Aaron Rodgers is kind of boring nowadays, you know. But
Angel could be a female too.
That's all good. It's all good, you know. But Drew, I'm sorry. I don't know where I was headed with that, but do you think? I don't know where I was going with that, but anyways,
Aaron Rodgers being boring.
Yeah, is Aaron Rodgers going to be a Jet next year?
Dude, I don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing football next year.
Wow.
You know,
probably.
You know, I really wouldn't. I don't think it would shock any of us if this dude decided to hang it up. You know, he just threw his 500th touchdown pass. You know, the guy's been all about himself and his. You know, like, I mean, I know you guys remember that interview back in the day where he was talking about MVPs before he was even talking about Super Bowls, and you know, it's just like one of those things where. I don't know. I mean, he's thrown 500 touchdowns now. I think that's kind of something he wanted to achieve, and he did that. And, you know, him and Devontae, it looks like – I don't know, man. It's going to be very interesting if he comes back and plays football. Obviously, they have a whole new head coaching staff that's going to go in there. I tell you what, dude, if they somehow, some way – if they hire a badass coach, like I'm talking about if they find a way to trade for Mike Tomlin or if Rex Ryan goes in there – or if you have just one of these old school style head coaches, it's not gonna work, dude. It's gonna be so much drama in Jets country, dude. It's gonna be nuts because Aaron Rodgers isn't gonna take anything from anybody, and if you have a head coach that's gonna try and be the head honcho, it's just not gonna work. It's not gonna work at all. And so, I don't know if they hire some passive style kind of head coach where Aaron Rodgers is still the king and he does his Pat McAfee shows and he does all his interviews and he, you know, it's just the way that he is drives me absolutely nuts, man. Like it drives me absolutely nuts. He's so about himself and he will continue to put the blame on anybody and everybody before he says, you know what? I fucked up. That game's on me. This is why we messed up. Every other quarterback in the league, every other quarterback in the league will say, this game's on me. He will say offensive line. Alan Lazard dropped the ball. Like he will blame anybody before he blames himself. And I can't. Right. If you're a leader of a team, you can't do that, bro. You can't.
Which is exactly like goes back to the Brock Purdy thing. Aaron Rodgers. No, I don't think he starts the season with the Jets or anybody else. I think he starts the season without a job. I think that there will be a team that probably has a quarterback go down and going to need to sign a veteran or whatever. And I think Aaron Rodgers is probably a good candidate then. But yeah. This is like the Jets that are coming off a few good weeks of on offense where they've moved the ball and scored some points, but that offense they don't have his back, and he's become a total shitbag, to put it bluntly. But
I'm more tired of Aaron Rodgers than I was of Tom Brady, and that's saying a lot.
Whoa.
I wanted Tom Brady to retire for like 7 years before he did. I just want him out. Like, just...
Whoa. Tom Brady?
It's so... I'm not comparing the two, but that's how much, like, I just got tired of seeing Tom Brady win, and he's in the playoffs every single year. Yada. That whole just drives me nuts, and he, played till he's 45. I'm like, like Drew said, he just drives me insane. Like I don't know, like, and I'm a easygoing, Christian dude. I don't hate many people, and that's a strong word. And I don't want to say it, but that he drives me nuts. Yeah, I guess it boils down to there's absolutely nothing you can respect out of this guy.
Yeah.
But when you lose total respect from somebody, what do you have left?
I think a lot of his players in the locker room feel the same way.
You need to stop.
A lot of his players.
I'll stop you real quick because while Travis Kelce is endorsing all this Pfizer crap, Aaron Rodgers is actually blasting the other side. So that's the only respect I get from Aaron Rodgers is a non-football related topic.
but you
Okay.
don't even know if he's real about it though.
Okay.
That's the point.
Okay.
Because he's just so wishy-washy and like just I don't know, like it literally like everything that comes out of his mouth, I feel like he's BS. Like every little thing.
Yeah.
Like he could just be saying a normal sentence. I'm like, I don't think he's telling the truth. Like I
Didn't he just say? He just said that with the time with the Jets, the last 2 years has been the best time in his career, and it's like, dude, you look miserable out there. Like, like,
he
give me a
quoted
break.
I saw this thing. He quoted that movie. Oh, when he answered the question, like someone said like, "Hey, someone said they had confidence in you and yada yada yada." He's like, "Someone has confidence in me." It's the one where, oh man, Tropic Thunder. It's a line from Tropic Thunder, and like, so he just so people think he's like legitimately answering, and he's like quoting Tropic Thunder like
Right.
a real sly way
Right.
to quote it, and no one catches it. Obviously, it gets
Yeah.
on social media, and everybody's just like, "Dude, this guy's just a clown." Like, he doesn't respect any media member. He doesn't respect any question. He thinks he's above everybody else. He's greater than everybody else, and no one can tell him anything. And that's just
Yeah.
it's toxic to even watch him as a fan. That's how I can't even imagine the locker room, but
Nick,
it's toxic to watch him as a fan.
Drew, and Nick, our new chatter, Angel23 says the reason why you hate him is because he's so good. That's
Oh,
why.
get out of here! Stop it.
That's
Oh
why you
no.
hate Aaron Rodgers,
Oh
guys,
no.
because he is that awesome. Okay, just. Anyways, I'm gonna toot my horn. We can go down forever the Aaron Rodgers thing. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. We were asked a question: Aaron Rodgers in New York Jets. I
Hey, we
saw
have
the
a new viewer. That's
the
awesome.
personality
Years
of
ago.
Aaron Rodgers and the market of New York is like the worst combustion of chemicals you can ever. And I'm so happy it came into fruition because even though he got hurt, it wasn't gonna look good. And I think now we all know, And I don't know why the
Ben
hell he
did
went to New
call it.
York.
I was wrong. Ben called it. I remember 2 years ago he said it's gonna be a mess, and you were right, Ben.
It's all right. Well, we need to move on forward to the next segment before we close it out. It kind of covers fantasy and the league headlines right now. Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill goes out and says, I'm not in the playoffs, so I'm out of Miami. Okay. And I don't know. We got new coaches. We have all these changes. We have fantasy football we want to produce. But do you want a guy like that, like on your team, even though he's Tyreek Hill and he's going to be open every. Like, I'm kind of confused now. Like, I don't know if I like this guy anymore, because I'm a team guy. And if that's how you're going to be, then get out. So, Drew, I know you're on. So, please, what do you think about the Tyreek Hill situation?
I mean, dude, I think. Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but when he was on Chad Ochocinco's podcast, he was talking about after he was done with his career, he wanted to go into porn. So I think his I think his next contract might be with freaking Brazzers or Brain Bros, dude. Like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I honestly, this guy has Antonio Brown written all over him. When he's
Wow.
done with his career, I think he's just going to be an absolute clown, trying to somehow, some way, stay in the media. Yes, Bryson, hola, hi. And then so once he's done with his career, man, I think it's just going to be an absolute crap show. Is he still going to be an amazing receiver until he decides to hang it up? Yeah, I think he still will be. When he's motivated and he's ready to play football, he's definitely, one of the most elite receivers in the game. There's no question about it. But it's just, can you keep him, in the game enough for him to actually care? If you're winning solves everything, right? That's really what it comes down to. If he's on a winning team and he's going to be able to put himself in a situation where he's going to be in the media and he's going to be all about MVP talk and he's going to be about this, that, and the other, and his team's doing great, he's going to be awesome. Once that team starts losing, it's going to be a complete crap show because he wants the media on him. So, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be on the Dolphins for sure. The way that it sounds, it doesn't look like it. Even Mike McDaniel, I guess there was some talk saying that, like we've already talked about multiple times on this podcast, he was called upon to go in the game and he said no. So, he quit on his team like few people have before. And, every person that's quit on their team, guess what? They're on a new team now.
Wow.
Obviously, for sure, there's going to be there will be a team. If Tyreek Hill wants to play football, he will be on a team. It's just a matter of if he can get himself onto a team where it makes sense.
Well, Tyreek Hill is always one of the top receivers sought out in the draft every year for the past how many years? So, Jake, I know it's hard to say now, but where do you think is a good fit? Where do you think he goes? And I think wherever he goes, he's still selected at the same spot.
I think first off, I think you know, I think the Dolphins are a weird case this year because the Dolphins didn't, you know, I know Tua went out with the concussion and all that, but even with Tua, they were just they were terrible compared to last year. And then they were talking about Mike McDaniels not being the guy, not being the coach after such the year that they had. There might be some things going on, in that locker room where Tyreek was like, hey, I don't want to, I'm late in my career. I want to be part of something that's going somewhere. The Dolphins may be one of those teams that is moving in the wrong direction because it's just, as we saw, like, I mean, Tyreek backed to a lot, it's the most accurate quarterback I've ever been with. He was all about it last year. Yes, winning definitely changes everything. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for example, I think if he went to the Chargers next year, Tyreek is still uncoverable. He's still a guy that just is a total difference maker. He wants his targets and he wants a team that's going to win. As much as I wish I miss the days of the old, like just Jerry Rice, where they just were, stuck to a franchise through thick and thin. It's just that's not really the way it is anymore. Justin Jefferson could bail out if his contract doesn't, if he could go to the highest bidder. So being somebody that wants to go and win somewhere, I don't really have a problem with. And I think that he still can be a huge difference maker. I don't think the guy has really slowed down at all. I think that he was not happy after the year they had last year, watching this decline in this offense and then not being a part of it. Not being targeted and all that stuff. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if it was injury related or what, but I wouldn't be sad, if I wouldn't, I'm not going to, he's going to play football next year. It's not going to be for Miami, but he is going to play somewhere. And I still think he's going to be a difference maker. Where would I take him in fantasy drafts? Is totally dependent on where he goes. If he went to a team that had, an established quarterback, let's say, Chargers were thrown out there as one. Even, Atlanta with Penix and what we've seen from Penix, I would be, I would be confident in that. But depending on where he goes, I wouldn't have a problem taking Tyreek, somewhere in that second round. He's not going to be a first rounder. There's too many stud wide receivers that are younger and all that. But depending on where he goes, I think he's still a huge difference maker.
Fantastic. Well, Nick, for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the next segment. We got to talk about it before we go because it's wild card weekend, right? And so this is the bracket. This is the live bracket going in. And so, Nick, what do you think is going to be the most intriguing and most important game of wild card weekend?
The game I'm looking forward to is Green Bay Philly. Because Green Bay again has that youngest. I think they're the youngest team in the playoffs again. They have that experience from last year. They upset Dallas, another NFC East team, whomped on them in Dallas. Jalen Hurts still hasn't cleared concussion protocol, but it's only intriguing if he plays. Obviously, if Jalen Hurts doesn't play, that kind of, lowers the watchability a little bit. But yeah, just with Saquon and then obviously Josh Jacobs in the new spot and the 2 new running back free agency classes and all that hype and then the Philly, like them resting Saquon and not going after the record, all that stuff, like, all right, here you go, you better win. Like, you better win. Like, that's what a lot of people were saying. Watched a lot of sports shows, like they were disappointed that they didn't let Saquon go for it. Yes, we get it's about winning in the Super Bowl, but that might have been his only chance, and he might not get another one ever again. And you're not guaranteed a Super Bowl or nothing. So, what they hang their hat on is they could, it's not going after incentives. It's not going after, like, this is a very, very prestigious record that I think he should have had a shot at getting. Um, but yeah, I'm looking at the Green Bay Philly matchup in the NFC and the AFC. It's got to be Baltimore, Pittsburgh again, just because it's AFC stuff. I mean, the Denver Buffalo too is intriguing too.
That was the game I want to talk about,
Yeah, I
man.
was gonna say I didn't want to touch it because I know Jake's gonna talk about it. But AFC, I guess you can never go wrong with the cold, hard fought AFC North battle between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Hopefully, Pittsburgh can put up a better fight than they just recently did. But wild card weekend's always fun because someone's gonna get upset, somebody's gonna get blown out that we don't expect, and it makes it exciting for the weekend.
Real quick, Jake, 2 minutes. What is it that you're excited for this weekend?
Yeah, few games. I'm definitely, obviously, Buffalo. Out of all the teams in the AFC, we got the one that kind of scares me the most because Denver's built a lot like Buffalo, strong defense, and Buffalo gets home field advantage. We're playing the one team that is accustomed to playing in the snow and cold weather. You kind of lose that element. Denver's built a lot like Buffalo is, and I think that's going to be a lot closer game than people think. The one I'm most excited to watch is Tampa Bay and Washington. I think those offenses I think it's going to be a high-scoring slugfest. And then the one I think we're going to see an upset Monday night. I think the Rams at home beat Minnesota. The Rams at home have been a little bit different team. They're capable of laying an egg for sure, but I mean, they have an offense to where when they get clicking, man, they can steamroll. And I really think that Sam Darnold's contract and his future next year kind of depend on this game because they just lost the first, seed in the first round bye to Detroit. And if they go out and they get upset by the Rams, then people are not going to remember Sam Darnold and the 14-3 record and all the numbers and this and that. They're just going to remember that Minnesota got bounced from the first round of the playoffs. So that's going to be, I think the Rams are going to do it. I'm picking that as an upset. So those are my three.
Fantastic. Drew, close us out, man. What do you want to see this weekend?
Well, really quick, breaking news just happened on the show. 49ers just parted ways with Nick Sorensen, their defensive coordinator. So Robert Saleh to the Bay Area next year. Robert Saleh, come on down. We're happy to have you.
Whoa.
So that's amazing news. But from the playoff standpoint side of it all, man, there's only really one game to watch it. And Nick nailed it, dude. I think that I predicted it earlier in this podcast. I think if Green Bay plays the Eagles, they're going to beat them. And Jalen Hurts hasn't played in, 2 or 3 weeks now. He's probably going to look rusty. Saquon, yeah, he is Saquon, but I'm telling you what, dude, that there's one team I think that just is kind of like I said, I'm not sold on them this whole year. It's been the Eagles. They have found ways to win, sure. They've had injuries all the time. Okay. Can he put it together? I don't know, dude. I don't know if Nick Sirianni and the way that he is as a coach and the way who he is as a person, I just don't think he's a leader. I don't think I don't think he can do it, dude. I really don't. And another one, man, I do want to see Jaden Daniels and the rookie go ball. I honestly think they can be one of that team that can just really scare a lot of teams right there in the NFC. Jaden Daniels is everything that I thought he was going to be and way more. I'm going to go ahead and hop off because kids are going to start yelling, but that's who I think.
Hey, thanks, Drew. Thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it. The one game.
Jake's man crush on the Rams. Sorry, I had to say that.
Who is that? Which one?
Your Rams. You got a man crush. You've been on them all year. You're such a man crush on the Rams. I love it.
I don't know because I don't know. They let me down. Like all the players in fantasy that I've had on the Rams have let me down.
But you're loyal. You're loyal.
I'm loyal to the idea that they have the. I don't know what has gone on with that team this year, but it's like they have. I know their offensive line is awful, but it's just
high-low.
They're the team that it's like they have.
Sam Darnold. Their quarterback sucks.
They have the ability to go and put up, a lot of points. It's just you can't sleep on them, and I feel like a lot of teams do. They go in, well, it's the Rams. They have that good, but it's like Stafford still playing the ball. He still has great weapons around him. Kyron Williams has been a beast. It's just I don't know. Be ready. Be ready.
Well, look, we're all going to be watching this weekend, Wild Card Weekend, and we're going to be back here on Tuesday next week to talk about it all. It's going to be an amazing time, and so I just want to say thank you to our host, Nick, Jake, and Drew for joining us here today, and also all of our commenters for filling up our comment space today. That feels good, and hopefully we continue that in the future. But we'll be back, you guys, next week, 6 p.m. All right, thank you, guys. Until
See you,
next.
boys.
Until next time, all right, peace be the journey. One love.
Late.
Dude, it's gonna be interesting, dude. Like with that whole Sam Darnold and Matt Stafford. You guys remember that